Concrete, sand and gravel quarry and ready mix concrete.
Andy Carp. I started back in 1980 working on this site when it was a lot smaller than it is now. I've now got my own small business, effectively working for myself as Resource UK.
Peter Sharp. I've been in brickmaking 40 years. I did 14 years with Ibstock and then 20 with Nickelmersh, and I've sort of retired now, but still keeping my eye in.
My name's Liam Fairclough. I'm David's apprentice at the end. So I've been working here since September 2024. I think / hope that I sort of take over from David when he retires.
Eventually.
Push him in the quarry.
I'll have to shake up.
Go on, Steve. Steve Marple's Chepstow Plant, site manager for lots of Ibstock earthworks.
I'm Tom Birtles, I'm 81D here at Norton Quarry.
Andrew Craddock, I'm technical director for Ibstock. Been in the industry about something like 30 odd years, so 31 years, I think, continuous plus time before that. So.
Jonathan Knight, a managing director of Pot Place Limited, been in the industry for 58 years nearly, and haven't hung my safety boots up yet.
Paul Braithwaite, regional manager for Chepstow, north, south, east and west, apparently now. Been with Chepstow for nearly 15 years.
John Tull, I'm key account manager for Chepstow Plant. I've been involved with Chepstow for 12 years now.
I'm Jake Sherman, I work for Ibstock Cattybrook site Bristol, and I'm a third year management apprentice.
Samuel Young, technical apprentice at Dorket Head.
And I'm Ollie Marching, I'm the technical manager at Dorket Head and the A1D there as well.
Right, just I start away, I'll tell you who I am when I start. I'm Kathy here. I'm Chepstow's Safety, Health, Environment and Quality Director for CHEP, because safety always has to come first. And been asked very kindly by David and the Heavy Clay Technology Association to put together a safety day for you here at Leicester. In terms of my credentials then, I started off, I was doing a geology degree, and then I got some sort of seasonal work in a quarry, driving a water bowser. I then decided I really love quarrying and went on to work for a major quarrying company for 8 years as assistant quarry manager and then quarry manager. Went through my Institute of Quarrying professional exams. I then joined HSC as Her Majesty's Inspector of Quarries for a greater part of the UK, at which time I did a postgraduate diploma in occupational safety and health at Heriot Watt University, which is an amazing place to go. And then for the past 4 years I've worked for Chepstow Plant, and I've added to my credentials working for Chepstow Plant, sort of gone off a bit of a tangent really, and now I'm a mental health first aider as well as our safeguarding officer, looking after our apprentices. So there's every day's a school day and there's always a lot to learn. So the idea being is that we do, I know it's been badged as a safety lecture, but I'm telling you that's not the way I'm going to run this today. I'm not going to lecture you, I'm going to explain some elements to you, and then what I'm going to do is going to get you to do some actual practical exercises, and then sort of expectations of sort of thinking outside the box with some of the challenges that we have in the industry. So start off with, I'm going to talk about isolation of quarry mobile plants. So what to expect really, it's about 10-15 minutes of me talking and going through slides, and then about 15 minutes of doing something sort of practical or thoughtful, and then we're going to have a break at 11 o'clock, and then we'll do the same again really, and then we're going to have some lunch very kindly provided by Ibstock, and then we're going to go on a quarry tour. We're going to split you into groups, and then Liam will let you know which group you're in. And so can you hear me at the back? Am I? Yeah, that's good. Liam's going to split you into groups so that we can manage things better, and also you're going to be led by somebody who knows the site so that we can explain the various geotechnical elements. We'll do a bit of consolidation in our quarry tour, so some of the things we've done on pedestrian safety, then obviously we'll be able to see those through, how they work in practice out in this busy site. Okay, without further ado then, I shall start on our first subject. Now, when we're talking about isolation, particularly of mobile plants, we've got a number of different energy sources to think about. When we're talking, and some of you will be working in factories where a lot of your energy sources are your electrical isolation side of things. But in mobile plant, we've also got a few different ones. So I don't know from the pictures there if anyone can suggest what energy sources we might be looking at. From the pictures.
Heat.
Heat. That's more of a determination of kinetic energy of the movement. Yeah.
Hydraulic.
Hydraulic. Yeah.
Electrical.
Electrical.
Gravitational.
Gravitational. Thermal. So we forget about thermal with mobile plant. And then the pneumatic that you mentioned, it can either be within the system, or we need to think about tyres and the energy that they've got within them, particularly if we're carrying out work near them, hot work, that sort of thing. Because we've had some catastrophic incidents in the industry where the split rims of mover tyres have come out catastrophically and killed people. So those are the energy sources that we're talking about. There we go. Right, so what are the risks? These are just some headlines. What's the risk if we don't isolate properly? Making no bones about this whatsoever. The outcome could be death from failure to isolate correctly. In my previous role, unfortunately, I had to investigate a number of fatal or life-changing injuries due to the lack of correct isolation. This was a major case that I was involved in this time at Mount Sorrel, where an individual had failed to isolate correctly, and as a result, his workmate and boss was then taken into the machine and catastrophically killed instantly. And in terms of the learnings from that incident, it all comes back down to that isolation procedure, which we will talk about and go through in more depth. So the first sort of question that we ask ourselves is, do we need to isolate the equipment? And in most circumstances, when we're carrying out maintenance, repair, inspection or cleaning of a machine, yes, we do need to isolate it. But we'll put a flow chart in place here, just to look at when live testing or live working could occur, and it's usually for diagnostics or verification. So to check what it is in some of the complex systems on the machines, you need to do that initial live test so you can then work to fix it. So the sort of circumstances where live testing is essential then, we'd expect strict controls, things like exclusion zones, competent people only working on the task. When we've got an area of controlled speed or movement, so a cordoned off area, potentially if you can't cordon it off, so you're in the middle of a live haul road, for example, something like that, potentially a spotter or something like that, to make sure that we're not putting ourselves at risk, and then no entry to those zones. So those are the kind of controls that we expect when we're live testing. All other environments is really, you're talking about that total isolation. So why, regardless of the fact we're trying not to kill people, we've got a legislative requirement, which is the Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulations, or PUWER 1998, and it says that employers must ensure that work equipment is provided with a suitable means to isolate it from all its sources of energy, and it must prevent inadvertent or accidental reconnection. And then there's an approved code of practice that goes with PUWER 1998, all available on the HSC website, and it clarifies that isolation must form a secure break in that energy supply, and it directly implies that isolation must be secure and effective. So you've got it secure, but you also need to check it's effective. And we'll come through some mnemonics in a minute, a way of remembering it. The Mineral Products Association have, this is available through safequarry.com. They've got a 31-page booklet, Guide to Energy Isolation and Latoto, but unfortunately within that there is only one page on mobile plant isolation. So for that reason then, certainly with within Chepstow to make sure that we've got very, very clear isolation procedures. So, Latoto, has anyone heard of Latoto? Lots of nods around the room.
Heard of, but not with those letters.
Not with those letters. Latoto, yeah. So, in essence, it's lockout, tag out, try out. So the lockout is that the machine is de-energised and you apply a lock or a hasp with a padlock to a lockable isolator when it's in the de-energised state. So there's some rules of one surrounding the standard for padlocks. One person, one padlock. If there's more than one person on the job, the expectation is that there is an equal number of padlocks to the people working on that job, even if they've just popped in to help with some part of the job. There is a requirement that everybody must have a padlock and that there is only one key for the padlock. You haven't got keys in common with your colleagues and friends and neighbours, and there isn't a spare key somewhere that, oh, just in case you leave it on, we're going to take it off. That the control is necessary that they have one person, one padlock, and one key, one padlock. Oh, and I've got to say there's a quiz at the end of each section, so some of the things that I'm reiterating you might want to make a note of. Okay. There's no prizes for quiz other than David's delicious biscuits. So the next stage is tag out. Now this doesn't really encompass like the secure and effective business that we were talking about a few minutes ago, but it does humanise the process. It shows you that somebody's working on it. It shows you in our circumstances, I'll show you in a minute. It gives you that jerk to say somebody's isolated this. That's a human being that's involved in this, and we have phone numbers on there as well, so you can phone them if you need to move that machine or you're not sure what stage it's at, or you think they might have disappeared off to Manchester Airport and left your machine locked off. Then we can contact them and check that they definitely have forgotten to take their isolator off it, and then work through a process then. But the tag out bit is about humanising the process and having that control over who's in charge of that isolation. And then the life-saving one for me, and the Mount Sorrel fatality would not have happened if the try-out stage could have been applied, because he would have known that conveyor would have started up, because it would have started up. So for me, that's seconds to save your life. The try-out stage, try and energise it using normal means. So we'll have a go with the dozer shortly, and we will try and energise it to check that isolation is effective. Okay, it's worth making sure, let me tell you. So, if we're carrying out live testing, we've got magnetic signs within the business. Our engineers should apply that so that you can see that they're carrying out live testing. It also should be evident because we should have some kind of controls in place for cordoning, etc. And then, we've got a mugshot here of one of our engineers. I think, will we have the site here now?
Yes, in the past, yeah.
Yeah. So this is me. I've isolated it, and this is my phone number. So if there's any issues with the isolation or whatever, then I'm the man to come to. And please don't turn it on or move it, because my life is at risk. So that's where we do that one. In terms of guidance for you, because some of you may not be familiar, particularly with isolating mobile plant, the Mineral Products Association, the MPA, and this is available on safequarry.com. Have put together toolbox talks. So you've got one on excavators, we've got one on loading shovels, for example, and they've colour-coded the energy sources so that when you're thinking about how you're going to isolate it, you can use these as a guide to think about, when you're carrying out that risk assessment, what hazards are going to befall me when I'm working on this excavator. And then on the back page, because they're done so that you can just take them out if you were doing a toolbox talk with engineers or something, somebody like that, operators. It talks about what needs to be in the risk assessment, what are the hazards, the moving parts, etc., stored energy, and then it talks about the control measures, things like keep the bucket on the ground, if it needs to be raised off the ground, sort of a propping measure, making sure a zero energy state. So that's not just talking about the electrical systems, that's also talking about your hydraulic, pneumatics. Remove all the keys. We would say that once you've isolated it correctly, then having the keys and being able to use the keys to the ignition shouldn't make any difference whatsoever, but it's good practice not to leave keys in machines anyway to prevent inadvertent use. And then all vehicles must be in a neutral gear, so with a wheeled vehicle, don't rely on the fact that you've just switched it off, that it essentially won't roll anywhere. So these are available, freely available from say Quarry.com, and they're a good start point when you're coming to write your isolation risk assessments. So timing wise, we're spot on. I'm going to ask you to go and carry out an isolation on a dozer, or at least observe one. We've got a Komatsu D65 out there. We've got some isolation procedures here, and I think Thomas is going to give us a demonstration.
Would you like me to?
I would very much like you to, yes. So I've got some isolation procedures that I've laminated for another machine, which is the other dozer, which I can let you have, which might be helpful when you're thinking about. So if you want to pass those along, and then we'll just take these ones. You leave those ones in here, and then we'll bring these ones out. So we need to sort of, because we're going to open that door, we need to sort of come into this direction to see what it is that Thomas is going to be doing. So don't be shy, we've had it turned off, it's a safe approach. Okay, so if you come this way, you'll be able to, because we're going to open this door, so we need to see what Thomas is doing, yeah?
So the machine's been parked, obviously the engine switched off, all your joysticks move, let any hydraulic pressure out of it.
So if we go through this is the procedure. So this is basically written so anybody without too much mechanical knowledge should be able to correctly isolate this, bring it to a zero state. So it's been parked on a flat level surface, Thomas, isn't it?
Yeah,
we have, because it's got controls and check valves in there, then when you switch it off, it doesn't, and you move the controls, it doesn't necessarily move the pressure from in the hydraulic system. So the idea being is one of the steps is that you turn the ignition on, not completely so the engine starts, but so then that you can use those check valves to reduce the pressure, to get that pressure out of the hydraulic system. So that's already been done, and that's quite straightforward. That's sitting in the cabin, wiggling the levers. And then the next stage is...
It's important, especially on modern equipment like this. As soon as you turn the ignition off, I'll show you on this here. When we open this for isolation, it's important to just give it, it usually says on different machinery, this one doesn't I don't think, but on like our loading shovels it'll say AdBlue purge. So when you turn the engine off, it needs a couple of minutes, I think they're 5 minutes loading shovels. It just gives it a chance to get rid of the AdBlue out of the system, otherwise it crystallises. And when it crystallises you have some big issues because obviously the pipes block and then we've got big bills for repairing them. So once you've obviously released all your pressure on your levers, it's important just to leave your machine for a few minutes until you're usually on these, your ignition will just click off, and that means that it's done its purge and it's obviously suitable then to isolate.
On these, Tom, that light is your warning.
Yeah.
When the light goes out, then it's safe to turn your key.
I think the
It's
light
the
here,
time.
this light's for the battery, isn't it? It's still on.
Is it still on?
Yeah.
But normally,
Usually says on your dashboard.
yeah.
So yeah, it just stops it crystallising before you obviously knock
So
the power
that's
off.
another step to consider if you've got an AdBlue system, is that you want to make sure that it's been allowed to purge.
Yeah.
So then we're saying that this light isn't going to go off because this is
No.
it's just showing us that the
Just showing you
battery's
there's power
still
to the
live.
battery.
So this is another device to show us that that battery is live, so the machine is not been de-energised as yet. Okay.
So I don't know if you can see the battery lights on there, the green light, for those who can't see. And to the left of it, you've obviously got a picture of a battery with a stripe through it. So that there, come in a bit closer, that there is your dead man switch. So if you just flip that up, you've got an isolation key there. So, see the lights have gone off now. So you were right, Steve. So, isolation key. Now the light's gone off. If we turn that way, there's no power now to the battery. There should be no power at all going to that battery if it's isolated. So if we were to carry out work on it, the first thing we do, obviously now that key is switched off in effect, I think I've got a padlock. I've got my padlock there. So that's mine, it's got my name on it, it's only got one key. And on these Komatsus, the key sort of acts as your isolation point, so you're able to put the padlock through. I take the key out, I don't know if you can see that. My padlock is now through that key. So if anybody comes to it now, they physically can't turn that key to put power back into the machine. And have a look if you like. But technically now, if I go and, well, it should definitely, if I go and put the ignition on, nothing will happen.
Would you want to try that first? We'll step out of the way and move back against the wall. This is your life-saving step.
That many pockets, that many keys, that's there, isn't it? So that ignition is on now. There should be no light on there.
Is that forward? Have a look.
Light on there?
No, there's no light.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it won't start.
And it wouldn't start. Okay. So that is the step that very often gets forgotten in isolation. You're like, here we are, we've got our padlock on, everything's good to go. Even with, you know, in fixed plant in quarries, mobile plant in quarries, that step is so important because there is potential short circuits. There's all sorts of things that could go on in the system where someone could turn it on on you. And the argument used to be, well, mobile plant, I'll hear, if I'm working on a machine, I'll hear if someone's turned it on me. There are circumstances where you might be working in a noisy environment, or you might be doing a noisy job where you wouldn't hear that somebody was turning the machine on you, and then by the time they have, it's too late. So it takes seconds. I know we're spending a bit of time talking about it, but it takes seconds, but that is the life-saving step of the isolation process. So now we know we've got secure isolation because no one can come and turn it on in the test, and we've got effective isolation because we've checked its efficacy. If we remember nothing else about isolation, remember secure and remember effective, and that should cover you.
There is another one though, isn't there? That ignition in there is not like a car. It's not an individual key. Tom could take his key out thinking, well, I've got the key here, nobody can start it. But I can go in there and start it with that one.
The big difference, I mean, they are bringing it in now, aren't they, like with the tractor?
Yeah, that's cheap.
Years and years, well, not even that long ago, you could buy a John Deere or any make of tractor and you can buy the keys off eBay. So you can buy a key for £1.50, walk up to that, unlock it, start it and drive it off. Whereas now a lot of the machinery and tractors now, they've got coded keys. So only that particular key will start the vehicle, which is obviously helping theft and various other things. So they are moving away from blanks for that very reason.
But this is definitely over and above saying the operator's given me his key and therefore it's
And
isolated.
then somebody else has walked up with another key.
I mean, cat keys, nearly everybody's got a cat key, I would have thought, haven't they? In the industry.
So Kath, I've turned up to do some work on that machine where we go tomorrow.
You?
Poor plastic.
Multi-task, yeah.
We've got some in there, and if you want.
Have you got some?
You've got some boards, I'd say
Just want a multi-class.
Okay.
Multi-haft, yeah. Now there are two types of multi-haft. There's like a scissors type one, and some of the companies in the industry won't accept the scissors type one anymore because they said that you can actually sort of wrangle it and get it off there. These ones are more like a gate. Don't know which one David's going to bring me. The gate ones mean that if it's not closed, then the gate doesn't appear, so you can't put your rocks in it. But, yeah, David will show us that. So, good question.
What kind of work would you like? I know if you work on the machine, you guys but is there any work around the machine that isolate the active? If you're working around it?
If you were working in an area around it, then you would look to have controls in place, usually by radio contact, isn't it? Where we'd say that this really has to stop. You've got pedestrians in that area because you can. Well, you may not be able to sit. I think you should go over and have a sit in the cab if you want. Sit in the cab.
Can do.
You can go and sit in the cab just so that you can appreciate what the visibility is like.
Just no one's ever made a dozer, ever, that is properly safe to get in and out of, because obviously the way that they're made, they're not ideal, especially when the tracks are all wet and horrible.
You've got your 3
you've got
points
your handle
of
there.
contact sort of, but it's not like a staircase.
So that's it.
So you've got a step key, yeah.
So you've got a handle there, and then you just press that in, press that up, that's it, and then pull it towards you.
You go and see what you can and can't see from in there. You've got when it's energised, you'll have a reversing camera as well, won't you? But you've got mirrors, but visibility is still kind of restricted.
I've got a haspu that we use on site along with the managerial blocks and contractor's block.
Okay.
These haspu will find you around, but it's principal, so we're not allowed to use these on site.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like with dozers, especially when you imagine all the slop and everything all over the tracks, they're really quite slippy. So they're always quite awkward to get off backwards. So obviously hold on to that to step down, because obviously there's always a build-up of material on there, so you have to be careful with dozers. But they've never designed one as sort of, like the bigger ones have obviously got steps that come up and down, but this size...
There's so many accidents of people getting on and off and slipping on there.
I'm assuming most of the time you're getting on and off it here.
Yeah, or the parking area, yeah. About a couple of weeks ago, if you saw this machine coming back in.
You could actually put a gap through it.
Yeah.
You could actually, I mean, I appreciate you've got to
Yeah,
wait.
these ones are
I'll have a look at that.
Do you mind just holding it up to the camera?
Even though
Can you hold it up to the camera for me?
Just open it and close it a bit.
We've got one over there for our excavators.
Not this one.
Yeah, I've got some in there.
Did David bring a steel gate one out as well?
Yeah, it's over there.
Gav, if you'd broken down on the
Do you mind if I just film that? Cheers.
This was on the steep roads, we wouldn't be particularly because it's a tracks machine. I think it potentially would. However, you can just put back into or behind it. With the
machine along.
yeah, back up, or you've got with the dump trucks, and they've got their own trucks on board. So you just
They to think about is a kind of, if access is a problem on this type of machine in particular, well, what do we do then?
Yeah.
Let's say poor old Thomas falls off this machine tomorrow, you have an LTA, he's off for a week, what are you going to do then?
We've got more than one person trained on the bulldozer.
Get that, but the poor fella's in hospital. What are you going to do? You're going to have HSE, somebody's going to come to you and go, access is a problem. He's just told me access is a problem off this machine. So what are we going to do? We're going to wait till he has an accident and then do something? Or are we going to do something in advance?
Training you, but it's challenging.
So it gives you that grip.
Quite easy to get onto.
No, not for cleaning you, but just to grip.
It's just the nature.
You're making the case where we should maybe do something else.
Yeah. Maybe on the platform.
I mean, the basics of it in terms of while we're talking about access and egress is that opportunity to have 3 points of contact. which is covered on here. I don't know if they've been talking about excavators, where we've got those hydraulic steps that come up and down, and the challenges of putting them onto a dozer.
Yeah, I think the general consensus, well, this type of machine is the worst type of machine
in terms of
for it.
In terms of quarries, like as you can see now, it's fine in this weather. In terms of winter weather, when the dozers are coming back in at night time, like with Neil on your dozer, when it's all covered in slop and everything, you can't see the step. I would say the dozer is probably the hardest in the machinery that we use.
Yeah.
We're talking about whether you could have a gantry or something, you know, so actually for this type of machine, if it's got a dedicated spot, you have a position where it reverses
when it's coming back into
and
park,
it can step off and then go down some stairs, and it can have drop down bits if you need it, because this is the, you know, this is a daily location. It's going to be parked, it's going to be used every day. This is the highest frequency, and you can do something in the kind of probability and control. You can do much more here, so why not do it?
But then when it's out, I mean, when it's out and about in the quarry.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's
Suppose
about
it's the
reducing
argument.
the risk,
Is it reasonably
reducing the likelihood by the
Is
fact
it reasonably practical or not?
it's here twice a day, you know, more than a night, every single day. 300 times, 600 occurrences where it could fall off. If you put a gantry in, you've just taken that away.
Yeah.
I appreciate you've not managed that. You've got to keep your stuff and do all this, but why not do it here? Would be my challenge, David. Why not?
Well, you have a fueling platform where sometimes you put more of a track machine, so that you have got the gantry you can step across onto, but there's only one fueling platform for Ibstock. I think Sheffield has in the past, so you can't park all the track machines via a fueling platform, but we could get some gantries set up in a parking area, as you suggest, which is a good idea.
Okay, shall we pop back in again now, because we're going to move on to a different subject? Electric.
Gravity, hydraulic,
thermal.
Excellent. How many keys should be available to a lock-off padlock? One. Excellent. And who's responsible for your safety?
You.
Yourself. And everyone. Yeah. Exactly. Well done. So, without further ado, then, we'll move into workplace transport and pedestrian segregation. Okay, so why should we consider that, other than the obvious sort of moral and ethical reasons? Is that we're told to by law. You've got the Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare Regulations, which is 1992, and they say that pedestrians or vehicles must be able to use a traffic route without causing danger to the health and safety of people working near it. Roadways and footpaths should be separate wherever possible. You need to consider protecting people who work in vehicle routes, and traffic routes must keep vehicles far away from doors or gates that pedestrians use, or pedestrian routes that lead onto them. So, sort of thinking about pedestrian safety, really. There's an organisation called QuinJac, Quarries Joint National Advisory Committee, and there is a lot of information on their website, which is quinjac.com. It's broken down into different parts of different activities on the quarry. There's one plant, which is plant fixed and mobile, where there's actually a self-audit tool. So if you wanted to go and get that, you could carry out a self-audit of your site and see whether or not that there, that there was work to be done in improving your site conditions, and it helps you come up with an action plan. So why isn't everybody sorted workplace transport in the quarry environment? Well, particularly my view, my experience, is that it very often goes into too difficult pile, because there's no one site is exactly the mirror of another, and solutions can be costly. Solutions can look for behavioural changes in individuals, which is one of the hardest things to tackle. So it just goes into the too difficult pile. So just have a look at why, what we can do. So I don't know how many of you have come across the hierarchy of controls in terms of health and safety before. So number one is eliminate, but it's very difficult to eliminate pedestrians from our quarry environment, because people have to get to work and they have to go out into the machine to get and into the factories and go to work. The second option is substitution, and that's not really relevant in the traffic management side of things. engineering controls really is the first point down in the tower where we do get the opportunity to put some controls in place. And then as we move down, there's administrative controls, things like rules, procedures. They're lower down the hierarchy of control because you've got to manage those a lot closer than putting sort of frameworks in, physical frameworks in place. And then right down at the bottom, we're all high vis up. It's the least effective. So when you're tackling a problem, then in terms of health and safety, then you should start from the top and work your way down. These being less effective because you've got to keep on top of them. How many times, David, do we go around saying, put your hard hat on, put your safety glasses on? Because it is much more personal and it's least effective.
Yeah, not very often this time. A few years ago, it's like every day you're asking people that.
You almost wanted to record it as quarry manager, didn't you? And just walk around and put your hard hat on, put your glasses on, where's your boots, where's your jackets? But yes, I think the culture is pretty much so. We all know what we're supposed to be wearing nowadays. But there are, human, whether they're deliberate violations or just mistakes, where people haven't got their people on, and people, forget to follow rules. So that's why this hierarchy is important. Okay, so looking, these are engineering controls in effect, aren't they, for our risk. We're very familiar with things like pedestrian walkways, pedestrian crossings. You can see this construction environment, they've actually got projected pedestrian walkways down onto the ground at night because of the visibility side of things. This was our compound at Leicester Road Quarry, where you can see we've got barriers around the areas where our employees would go to the loo and in their canteen. So you've got sort of permanent provision. That's more flexible, the construction one, and this is a flexible solution. And then we've got things like segregation. This is in one of our client quarry environments where they've put in a separate routeway for pedestrians and bicycles. And then this is our yard down in Chepstow, where you can see we've got barriers to take us into the workshop entrance. There's a gap in the barrier, which is for items to be delivered into the workshop. So these are more fixed. And then this one's from Watley Quarry. It's a very highly trafficked route, both by humans and machines and lorries. So they've invested quite a lot of money in putting in a fixed structure with traffic lights and pedestrian crossing lights. And then this is a slightly more temporary version and a concrete plant where you've got the traffic lights and a gate. So there are a number of different varieties of things that you can do. It'll be dependent on your assessment. Really, there is no kind of framework for in this circumstance you need to have this. It is there always thrown back down to risk assessment. So what I would like you to do is hopefully, well, you have got it, definitely. Pass these ones around. And once you've all got one, I'll explain what I'd like you to do.
Is there enough cash like everyone got?
Yes. I hope so. Say that confidently, yeah, I think so.
We're all right.
I think I did 30. Okay, so thank you. So you'll see this is an aerial view from Google Maps of the entrance and then part of the stockpiling area here at Nutton. And the reason I've done this is a basic approach to carrying out a traffic management assessment, and we're focusing on pedestrians because let's make no bones about it, they are the most vulnerable users of our system because they're not in machines or in vehicles. And the approach that I'd like to take is look at them. So have a look at your movements. So using the different coloured pens that David's very kindly provided, is I would do a different colour for the different different kinds of movements.
A couple of tables along, and then help yourselves to.
Is put your pedestrians, your regular and foreseeable. Now, just by way of explanation, this is the weighbridge here. This is the signing in point as well, isn't it? So we'll be expected to, humans would expect to go there. We're in the Sheffield building here. We've got canteens and we've got toilets. So those are kind of set locations, if you like. So if you mark down where your pedestrians go and then work your way through the list, the stockpiles are here and here, and that is where the HGVs would travel, and then they would have to come backwards and forwards through the main entrance and into onto and off the weighbridge, for those of you not familiar with the site. The car parking, there's various different areas for car parking. And then potentially, you know, your sort of your Amazon delivery man, a driver who wants to come in and throw his parcel out through the window, you know, where will he want to go? So if you mark your various movements in there, then the next stage is you'll be able to see where they cross. So that's where you've got your conflicts. In this basic approach, then, when you do have your conflicts, that's where you would want to apply your controls. Okay, so I'll leave you to have a think about that. Now, when applying controls then, I would like you to think outside the box, because this is a perfect opportunity for us to really have a good think here at Nutton about the traffic management process. So I'll give you a few, give you about 8 minutes to have a go at that. And then we've been out to the maintenance bay, so you've seen where that is, so you know who, foreseeably, who would need to go there.
Sorry. Yeah. Can everyone put their names at the top of their sheet so we can keep them and scan them in? Yeah.
Remind me which is the weighbridge again, please.
This is the bridge itself, and this is the weighbridge building here.
Right, got it. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I've got it, yeah.
So obviously on sites that you're more familiar with, we'll have a...
Where'd you say the lorries coming out?
This is the main route for the lorries to come in and out.
Where do they turn? Just
In the centre of the compound, because we used to have a road that went down to Turn Circle here, because we haven't got that. The lorries could come in, main entrance, They come round the turn circle here, go out there, and then they reverse back in that position. So there's only one thing to reversing. It is tight, yes, but it is back from that. Hopefully by some of next year, there'll be just a bit of a concrete roadway there, 2 lorries length. So again, it'll start back down, and then into next year we're going to put a concrete roadway through here, and a proper turning circle, and then we'll remove the need for reversing altogether.
It doesn't show up very well.
And some of these pens don't come up very well because nice pastel shades. Put them in Morrison.
Yeah, hello there.
I am.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Sit round here if you want to squeeze
Yeah,
round.
yeah, I'll squeeze in. I do.
Later, process go through.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
David, where's your fueling station?
The fueling station is there, so the green box. There's a fueling platform just up there. Our canteen is there, so this image is a bit old. Yes.
Illustrative. Okay, another minute now, and then we'll be back.
And where are the HGVs loaded?
HGV loaded that pad there.
Just that
So
pad there.
the stockpiles
Oh,
here,
yeah,
materials,
okay.
the stockpiles, the loading pad.
Yeah.
And then some are loaded on this side of the Hall Road, and the stockpiles on this side, and we have to walk down to a pad there.
Right.
Oh, there you are, yes.
Right, okay. So clearly, this is something you can do on the sites that you are when you're not at Nutton. The main word that's important in relation to traffic management and pedestrian segregation is the word management, because we know our sites. We've carried out activities. This is the first part of your risk assessment, isn't it? It's looking at your conflicts, and it's looking at what potential controls that you would put in place. Has anyone selected any particular controls that they think they'd like to put in place that would be relevant for, let's say, for pedestrian, regular pedestrian visits? Crossings.
Yeah, some form of segregation is critical, isn't it? To maintain the
So
vehicle.
we can see some of that here, can't we? I say it's an old photograph. You
Yeah.
can see some segregation here,
Yes.
and The key word is when somebody comes to site, then you need to have managed where you expect them to go. Make it clear through signage, make it clear through the way you've laid your site out. But you don't want anybody coming in and think this is a free-for-all and then go where the hell they like, because it's a hazardous environment. So we need to be, that management needs to be obvious the minute we come in through the gate of the site, because you have a lot of users that may not be massively familiar with the expectations. Okay, so it's clear direction that needs to be implemented.
I think one of the complaints that I often have on some sites is there's too much signage.
Confusing.
Particularly tarmac. I mean, you come in here and it's pretty clear, and you know where you're going, you know what the speed limit is, you know who's got right of way. But you go into some tarmac sites and there's just so much to see, so many signs to read, it becomes confusing.
Some of the ones that were done with the best possible intentions was the result of this sort of exercise, where somebody had got it printed and put on the entrance to the quarry. But then the expectation would be almost that you'd have to park there in the entrance to the quarry and look at it in great detail before you could go there. One of the better ones I saw done is that when you arrived on site, say you were in a car, then you were given a set of arrows to follow. So, because Pink's not using Quarries very often, this company had chosen pink arrows for cars. So you follow the pink arrows and you park in the pink car park. You know, if you were an HGV driver, you could be potentially yellow, and then it would show the yellow route for you to follow, and there would be signs that married in with that overall plan. So the colours that you would have chosen for your assessment, then potentially you could marry that across to show people where they want to go on sites. Clearly, there are some very complicated sites that you go to where you come in potentially in contact with HGVs while you're queuing up to get into your car parking space. But it's about that management of it, because we're the people in responsible control of the site, so we need to be able to show that we're managing people from the minute they come across our threshold, so that we can get them to a safe place where we can instruct them a bit more. So if you want them to go and report at the weighbridge, make it very, very obvious. Park your car here, go over here. The rest of it we can deal with after that. But cordon them, encourage them, cajole, corral them, get them to that initial signing in place, and then you can control them after that. Because if they've missed that and gone sailing off somewhere else, you've got a problem on your hands, haven't you? Okay?
The last thing you want is a wall of text to read, isn't it?
Totally. The sign blindness is what you're on about, Paul, isn't it?
It's alright when you've had your induction and it's being explained to you, but when you go on that site, it needs to be obvious, clear and obvious.
And what I encourage people to do is, when you're coming into site, is think, if I was coming in for the first time and I didn't know where I was going, how, you can walk through this, on a Saturday morning or whatever, and come through and say, well, if I'd never been here before, I would have a clue, what would tell me where you wanted me? Yeah. And if you can't answer that question, then you can't have covered the element of management that's required for this. So
You've almost got to assume somebody from the site doesn't know the site at all, make the clearest direction where they go, and then the directions for people who know the site already, then it's sort of, not secondary, but almost. Yeah. So the people that know nothing, that's very clear where they need to go.
One of the things I've seen done really well as well is when someone's first come into site, say, oh, you're visiting me on Thursday, and just send like a PDF of what the road turning looks like, where I want you to park, and what a photograph of what your weighbridge building looks like. So they get that in advance of the meeting or the visit, and they're like, yeah, I know I'm going now. Because, if someone chooses not to read that, then that's up to them. But then at least, I mean, it might just be me, but when I'm going somewhere new, I do often look on Google Earth or whatever and see if I know what the gate looks like, so I don't go sailing past it, for example. So it's another way of just kind of getting that management bit in at the early stage. So going on to the quiz now then. Who are the most vulnerable to site users?
Yeah, pedestrian.
Pedestrian, excellent. And I haven't really touched on this much, but I expect you'll all have your views on it. What's the challenge with you putting fixed structures in for segregation? What's the challenge with those? What are the difficulties with those?
Screening, maybe? Blocking sites.
That's a good answer, yeah.
In case something else changes.
In case something changes. We've had a situation recently where a site has put in some fantastic pedestrian walkways with armco barriers, and it's been a little bit tight in some areas for the hauliers, but the hauliers have, in the main, got it sorted. A low loader went in with a big excavator, which is foreseeable in the quarry environment, and they've had to go and take all the armco barriers off because the low loader cannot get into that part of the quarry. So what I always used to advise when someone's starting on this journey is put something temporary in to start with, and then see how that fits in with what you're expecting of that work environment. And you might need to tweak at that stage. If you've gone and bolted everything down first, as your first stab, then that's when you might find that it starts bringing problems to bear. Other things are ground conditions. I'm putting the walkway here. Everyone on site, you're a new manager, come in. I'm putting the walkway here. It's the most direct route. Yeah, but you've not been here in the winter yet. You don't know that area turns into a massive quagmire and no one is going to walk that way in the winter months. So it's about thinking about drainage as well and lighting of pedestrian walkways when you choose them. So the challenge with fixed structures, the other thing is pedestrian crossings painted in the quarry environment, they don't last very long. They get scrubbed away very, very quickly. So it's about thinking of measures. I mean, that one with the projected walkway looks fantastic, but it wouldn't be very suitable on a day like today. So it's working out what's best, and that is what makes it so difficult, because no one can come and say, you need to do this, 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 and this. What you do need to do is carry out a risk assessment and then find a way of managing your traffic. You've actually got control over it. And then just the last one, where's PPE on the hierarchy of control?
Last resort.
At the bottom. Brilliant. You get a break now as a reward. How's about that? 15 minutes. Right, I think we're just waiting for a couple. Because this is another one which I believe is always goes in the far too difficult pile, because it is challenging. It is required by law. The quarry regulations require that this is considered and managed. And we can imagine that it is challenging in quarries, because they're not easy places to get in and out of at the best of times, never mind in inclement weather we've been suffering for the past 2 months. So this is a real life rescue of a sheep that happens in one of the quarries that we work in down in just outside London. And then you can see the sort of equipment that the emergency services have to bring to bear with them in those circumstances. But we're all glad to hear that the sheep did get out safely. He was a bit orange by the time he got out of the lagoon, but he was fine. So, in terms of requirements then, going back to the legal requirement, notwithstanding moral and legal requirements, moral and ethical requirements, we've got legal requirements, and specifically we've got Regulation 15, which requires that we have an adequate means of escape and rescue are provided and maintained to make sure that people in the quarry can leave promptly and safely in the case of danger. But we've got communication and warning facilities established to make sure assistance and rescue operations can be launched quickly when required. But written instructions concerning the use of emergency equipment and actions. We've got an emergency procedure, it's on the other side of this door, isn't it? Yes. So, in the event of an emergency, what a lot of people do is go into panic. So, this is really about having thought about it in advance, thought about the various scenarios that can happen in advance, and what action needs to be taken. That people are trained in the appropriate emergency actions that are required, and that any rescue equipment is kept ready for use, readily accessible, in clearly signposted locations. That is the regulation. That's not the approved code of practice, that's the actual regulation That's what is required. So, in terms of practicalities, now I was very fortunate. I went to an Institute of Quarrying presentation last Monday night down in Somerset, where there was a gentleman who used to be a quarry manager who now runs his own first aid business. And I was able to put my hand up at the end of the presentation and say, "Oh, Richard, would you be able to talk me through, the practicalities then of providing assistance to somebody who is in a piece of mobile plant?" And he very kindly followed up with a lot of clear instruction and consideration. So I'm speaking from Richard as well as myself, and so I feel very, very glad that timing happened last Monday. So, in terms of rescuing people from mobile plant, the best solution really is what is wrong with the patient in the first place. So the way that I've been directed to look at this is using the three principles of first aid. Have we got first aiders in the room? We've got some green hats. So we know what's the first principle of first aid?
Keeping yourself safe.
Three P's. Three P's. The principles of first aid.
I just said keeping yourself safe.
Preserve life. First one. Prevent the condition getting worse, and then promote recovery. So that's the start point for first aid. So if the patient's got a life-threatening condition where getting them out of a cab is going to be more delaying than treating them in the cab, then it's normally best to do them where they are. Now this may require more training for your first aiders. It will lead to them needing to know how to manage an airway, using defibrillators, or controlling life-threatening bleeding in awkward places. And this is in line with the current direction from the Resuscitation Council. When I was doing my first aid training, you've got to get them on a flat floor. That is no longer the direction from the Resuscitation Council. If that is going to take an amount of time to do that, then you need to deal with them as and when they are. And it's recognised that any delayed treatment from trying to get them somewhere flat and safe could then knock out the first principle of first aid, preserving life. Okay. So sort of stabilisation until you can get them to a better place. So if you phone 999 when somebody is requiring resuscitation, etc., then you will have the assistance there. You do need to think about how the assistance is going to get to you. How are you going to get those professionals that have arrived on site in not a four-wheel drive out into your quarry environment to provide that support? And I'll get you to have a think about I'll come up with some suggestions in a minute. So if they haven't got a life-threatening condition, because I think part of the panic is, quick, we've got to get them out of the cab. God. If they haven't got a life-threatening condition, if you can stabilise them where they are, then you've got more time, and there's also less of a risk. So you might be all worried, and they might be screaming their head off because they're in a lot of pain, but usually the screamers are the ones that are still alive, and are still likely to be staying alive. And you'd be looking at extraction from the location to the ambulance. So we need to think of the safest way of doing that for the patient and the first aiders. One of the questions, one of the aspects that I've been taught, I'm a rugby first aider for my daughter's rugby team, is how much can you encourage them to do themselves? It's safer for all, and the patient will need support and assistance to do so, but it may well be that they can move, and they will naturally protect themselves. They will naturally move at the correct speed and the way they're protecting their injury, so it doesn't get worse. In road traffic collisions now, they're less likely to use the neck brace. They used to slap you on a neck brace as soon as they come across you. They don't tend to do that so much anymore. You rarely see crews using the neck braces anymore. Even with people with neck injuries are capable of protecting themselves because it's the natural behaviour. So if somebody can get out of a cab with assistance, then that is where we would start. And I'll come on to some more practicalities now. So, in summary then, you know, absolutely life-threatening, provide that support where they actually are in the cab, and then with the non-life-threatening, can they actually help you to help them? So this is the sort of thing that is we're talking about in terms of extraction. The first aiders really will be doing a lot of the work, but it depends on the injuries, and you don't want to make an injury worse, clearly. A simple solution that this gentleman, Richard, told me about was that using a full work at height safety harness, then you can actually, that's really good grab handles for people to assist them getting them out of the cab. But then, you know, depending on your risk assessment, and we'll come on to that in a bit, you've got a variety of different stretchers that can be used. Now this is looking about extraction for cabs, this bit. One of the early point of call could be, can you drive a similar vehicle alongside the patient's vehicle to use as a working platform? You know, if it's in a dumper, can you drive a dumper alongside it? If you've got mutes, if you're in a factory environment, you've got a mute and someone's up high, can you use the mute to get there safely? And then you were talking about sheeting bays outside earlier. You know, is there a sheeting bay that you can bring to bear on the situation? It won't work in every situation, but some, it might be the answer to that. You've got these various stretchers that you can use. I think in sort of price order, you're talking about a couple of £100, about £500, £1,000 for this one because it comes in a rucksack as well. And that's what people, you know, the ambulance service would use if somebody had a cardiac arrest in an attic, and that's how they would get them down. If you've got confined spaces, you'll be looking at sort of winching devices there, running about £500. Where we've got really remote working places, then you might need to think about sort of adding a bleed control aspect to your first aid kit, so that you've got your extra tourniquets, you've got your extra, you've got trying to think what the name it is, but the chemicals that can help sort of clot the blood in big burns, in big bleeds. Potentially even things like inflatable boats where you've got a lot of lagoons. And then the provision of these. These life rings and these throw ropes are very often seen in a quarry environment. One thing I will say about the life rings is that I was very fortunate on another Institute of Quarry and Safety Day to be given an exercise where they put a dummy in a lagoon, and we had to try and throw the life ring to the dummy. Now the ones of us that got the life ring somewhere near the dummy were quite pleased with ourselves, but you were also at a risk of smacking somebody who's trying not to drown around the head with quite a hard plastic object. So we were very much encouraged, sort of discouraged away from the use of it, even though they were very, very visible. It's very difficult to actually get those to where you need them, whereas throw lines are much, much easier. They're much lighter and they're usually weighted so that you can use them a lot easier. You know, most people will be able to throw a throw line. I would challenge even the most robust gym goer to be able to accurately throw one of those at a drowning casualty. And I'm not working on commission for throw lines, by the way. But that's just what I've learned. Okay, so in terms of practicalities, for your escape and rescue, it again, and it's not a cop-out, it comes down to risk assessment. It's specific to your individual site. So make a plan. Make a plan for your emergency rescue. Train it out. Make sure people know about it. Communicate it, like you're doing your emergency plan on the back of that door. If you need specific equipment for it, then you provide it, and then you make sure it's maintained. But this big one here, and this is also a legal requirement in the Quarries Regs, Regulation 19, which is you are supposed to carry out safety drills. And what a perfect way of checking whether your emergency and rescue plan works is by actually trying it out. Now, I know there was a quarry in Leicestershire. They did an absolutely well-planned, organised safety drill. Got everyone out. Everyone was really pleased with themselves. They looked in the car park. There was a driller's van here. and the driller was up there merrily drilling away on the face because everyone had forgotten about him. But the point of that is that only when you practice it, you'll work out what bits you've missed. But each time you practice it, you'll probably find something new, different sets of circumstances on that particular moment that then mean that you need to review and reinforce it. So that's the key to it, I see. Clearly make a plan, work out how you're going to tackle and manage these challenges, but then this is the key bit, and practicing it, and any of us who are first aiders will know that the more practice that you get at it, the more confident you are, and the more you go straight into that zone of knowing what to do, as opposed to that panic. You know, a first aider that's trained every 3 years, who never ever does any first aid at all, is not going to be as efficient as somebody who's had practice of getting into that zone of having to apply their skills. And this works across the board with your escape and rescue. And it's only this gentleman, Richard, who did a lot of work for the ambulance service as well. He said you can tell the minute you get to a site whether someone has cracked their escape and rescue, because he said the people know what they're doing. There's somebody waiting for you at the gate, waving at you, follow me. You can't go in that. You'll have to come with me in the tractor. Oh, guess what? I've got all the crisp packets out of the tractor, so you can put your medical equipment in it. I've thought about what needs to be done. Get you down to the site. It's all planning, and it's all execution and then fine tuning. Okay. So as a little bit of light relief, you'll love this. I've provided you all with a risk assessment for escape and rescue at the quarry. I've put some general hazards in there, and I'd just like to do the thought process then of who might be harmed and how, what controls are already in place. Now you can have this as a fictitious quarry in your minds if you don't know this site particularly well, or you can even do it for your own workplace if quarry's on your bag. Okay? So you hand those out, and then we've all got pens because I know that already. You have to think about who might be harmed, and this is looking specifically not at all the risks in the quarry. This is about thinking about escape and rescue elements, okay? And I'll tell you how much time you've got for that. Let's say it's a bit of a whistle stop, but it's just getting those grey cells working, yeah? So the key one in the first box to fill in is not just who could be harmed, but how could they be harmed. So you're thinking of things like, are they going to be squashed? Are they going to be run over? Are they going to drown? And their boxes aren't very big, as I say. It's just to get the thought process in train. I'll give you about 10 minutes on that. Well, it's not exam conditions. If you want to discuss items between yourselves, that's fine, you know. just another couple of minutes then. Okay then, well, feel free to take that away with you and use it on your individual sites as a bit of a start point. Do you find it useful to take yourself out of the normal risk assessment process and into an escape and rescue thought process? Gives you a total different set of circumstances, isn't it? Okay. Has anyone got any particular feedback they'd like to share about that mental process I've just put you all through?
One challenge we difficult to have here with an ancient workforce, someone might have a heart attack or a stroke, and it's very difficult to get someone who's a dead weight out of the machine, or if they're walking around the quarry, safely up to the top. And we've looked at many ways of having a vehicle in which you could have a stretcher, a pseudo ambulance type of thing, we have really succeeded in finding the right solution. If someone's able to walk, we can actually get them into a seat of a dump or a tractor, straightforward. If someone was incapacitated, we do have a stretcher, but it would take 6 team members or more to actually manhaul the person onto the compound. So we haven't quite boxed that one off.
So, just going from what I've asked and I learned recently, is that it would be about your first aiders having that capability of being able to treat that person where they were in terms of the conserving life aspect of it, and then getting the emergency services there to then do the bits that they would do. The extraction then would be done with your assistance, but then that would be kind of driven by the need for the emergency services to say either you're all right now, you can walk out, or and that's where I see, you know, potentially some of these stretcher devices being useful, or also that easy wing one of the worker height harness. You can put that on somebody, and then they're safe, and you've got something to hold on to, rather than sort of trying to not have any handholds other than clothing or what have you. So I think what I learned from that discussion that I had, which was try and treat in situ when you're talking about life threatening, and then go off in your tractor, meet them at the gate, put them in the tractor, take them down there with you, and then they will guide you as to the necessity and about the extraction.
That's good. Like
because they will have stretchers and things like that with them as well.
But basically, the only practical thing is like the air ambulance or the military coming in and winch somebody off. It did happen about 35, 40 years ago, Aikdale, on the HS. We had someone winched out to the lagoon there, but that wasn't any working person. It was like the somebody decided to build some houses on the perimeter of the quarry, and the husband and wife decided to have a bit of an argument, and the husband decided to have a walk straight across the quarry in the middle of the night and didn't realise there was a problem there. So got stuck.
Yeah, but it just shows how
Yeah.
these unlikely events,
They do happen.
incredibly,
Yeah.
you can't, I mean, the other point I took from this, one's got to think about the specific hazards to that, the first aid, the recovery team, and things like mobile plant. Your mobile plant operations,
Yeah, we'll cease. Yeah.
yeah, you've got to make sure you do, because
Yeah.
otherwise, very easily, but potentially, a bad situation gets
Yeah.
worse, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Right, so little, keep going. I'm going back one forward now, that's not okay. Right direction. So a little mini quiz. 3 principles of first aid, 3 P's. Remember, preserve life, yeah. Second one, prevent things getting worse. And the third one, remote recovery, excellent. Okay, and step 5 in managing escape and rescue on site. So that we had a plan on one end. What was step 5?
Practice.
Drill.
Practice and review, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, and then the last question for this section. What sort of circumstances would prompt a review of your assessment?
Changes.
So changes in site conditions? Changes in somebody's medical condition. If someone comes and discloses to you that they've got a new wonderful medical condition, that will have to feed itself into, if they're a regular working it, that'll have to feed itself in. I mean, I had the fortune or misfortune, I'm not sure, of having 2 diabetic loading shovel drivers in the quarry that I worked in, and one of the elements of the supervision was checking that they checked their sugar levels. They were both bachelors, so they didn't have perhaps some of the wraparound care that non-bachelors would have, and it was checking, have you had what's your sugar like today? And it wasn't in the days where you can have a nice indicator on your arm that tells you on your phone, so, because clearly should they go hypo, then we would have had a difficulty with them being in a position in the loading shovel where they might not have recognised that they weren't quite where they should be safety wise. So that, if someone comes to you with that sort of information, you want to put that into your assessment. Any touching wood now. Instant feedback. That if something does happen, how that played out is a brilliant way of reviewing whether or not your plans worked well. And also when you're doing your safety drills, then that needs to feed back in as well. What didn't go well? Did the driller get left the other side of the quarry where everyone else was in the car park? Okay? Right then. You can rest your brains a bit now because I'm going to tell you a story. Okay? It's a sad story, but it's a cautionary tale. Okay? And a lot of, in my experience, a lot of sort of health issues are kind of, well, they're not as bad as safety issues. They're not going to give you the full-on death that you'll get from safety issues. So I'm going to talk to you about it's the Hawk's Nest tunnel disaster. It was a few years ago, David. I shared this with you, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it seems to have had an impact. So you'd like me to share it with the rest of you. In terms of ill health, you don't tend to have disasters. It tends to be sort of individuals, and individuals being affected. They've got their own personal disaster going on with it, with ill health caused by work exposures. But you don't tend to have massive clusters that really have a numerative impact. Then, if you like. So, what we had here, I'll set the scene. We're in 1930s America. We're in a depression. Nobody's got any work. Nobody's got any money. The children are all going hungry. No one's got any aspiration because everything's depressed. A company called Union Carbide, which is a massive American corporation. Those of you who've heard of the Bhopal disaster will know that they also got their name written all over that as well. They wanted to put a hydroelectric power station in to feed a metallurgical plant up in the Gawley Bridge area of West Virginia, which is on sort of the western eastern side of the United States. So it's quite a rural area. There's a town there, town of Quarries Bridge. I'm not sure Jean knows Peach Spaghetti House was there in the 1930s, but you know, this is just a Google Maps snapshot of the area. There was a company called the New Kanawha Power Company, and what they wanted to do is this new river wasn't really flowing quite fast enough to be able to get that hydroelectric, you know, to get the turbines running fast enough. So what they did is they wanted to dig a tunnel in this area to allow the water to go through a really nice, lovely round tunnel and provide that velocity needed to turn the turbines to get the electric. So thousands of people are on the search for work in the 1930s, and whoopie-doo, there's an amazing contract here where you can come tunnelling up in Quarries Bridge. So 4,800 people worked on the project. The majority of these were immigrant workers from the south of America. So there's also a racial divide in that the supervisory staff and the management were mainly white, and the workers working in the tunnel were mainly black. There was a massive push for speed, as there always is, production, and the company decided they were going to drill it dry as opposed to drilling it wet. Although that caused a bit more dust, and we'll have a look at the dust in a minute. It really was a lot quicker, and actually they succeeded in doing the project in record time. However, there were some consequences. So this is actual photographs of the tunnel. You can see, you can just about see the gentleman there. You can see the sort of supervisory staff in their trilbies and their shirts and ties, and you can see the drilling staff there. It was being drilled into rock with very, very high silica levels, and as you can see from the photographs, or maybe not, there's no respiratory protection supplied whatsoever, and no suppression by water. They were doing record levels, 250 foot of tunnel heading per week. And a worker, Shirley Jones, male called Shirley, 18 years old, wrote to his sweetheart. Think of it, so I'm doing the American accent, if that's all right with you, I won't do that. Think of it, honey, a job, 25 cents an hour, 12 hours a day, $3 a week. Wow, we married really soon. Unfortunately, he was one of the first to die of acute silicosis. They were working 10 to 15 hour shifts in this kind of environment, drills, explosives. So as you can see, that's the entrance to the tunnel. Can you imagine what it was like actually in the tunnel, where there was no general ventilation, just pulling a bit of that dust away? It is said from the witness statements later that the management would wear masks, but clearly there was no provision for the workers. They think Union Carbide said that 109 people had died from acute silicosis. Now, acute silicosis is a sped up version, which basically means that you just can't breathe. And with acute levels of exposure to respirals, this crystalline silica, then acute silicosis is possible. So they say 109 people died. Now that's 109 people died involved in the project of ill health, which is highly, highly unusual. The congressional investigation said that there were 476 they thought had died, but there was a physician who had particular interest in this, and he puts the numbers more into the thousands. For the reason that if someone got ill, they couldn't work so well, so they went home. So they weren't part of that initial cluster. But this happened so quickly that they couldn't find the places to bury the black workers, because in those days they had segregation of graveyards. So they were burying, they had to bury so many workers that they had to use a farm field to bury them in. And these are all acute silicosis workers. Because in my old job, when I used to go around and say, oh, silicosis, you know, RTS, terrible stuff, it'll kill you. Where's graveyard calf? well, research time, I've found this is an acute silicosis graveyard, and here's the names of some of them. But there were injustices there, and they're part of the story. But the main part of the story is that although you think that exposure to dust will either not affect you or it will affect you so long in the future that it doesn't really matter, particularly if you're young, because you're absolutely invincible when you're young and nothing's ever going to get you. It's that exposure to dust can have really, really acute effects that can kill you quite quickly. Okay, so just a little bit about silicosis, because that's the story, but this is silicosis. This is what the respirable crystalline silica grains look like under electron microscope. So that's 10 micrometers. That is, you can see the shape of them, they're quite sharp, and that's important because what happens is they're like little needles, and they get down so far into your lungs, into what's called the alveoli, that they sit there like little needles. And because silica is a very inert substance, then your body then says, oh, there's something that shouldn't be in my lungs, and it sends out the white blood cells, the leukocytes, and they try and attack silica. But the problem being is the silica is inert and it will not be attacked. So what those leukocytes eventually do is end up attacking your lung tissue. So it's like you're attacking yourself, but silica is the catalyst in that. So it gets so far down into your lungs, and you think, oh, I can get rid of anything by having a good old cough or whatever, but they are absolutely embedded because they're needle-like structures. Quarries, variety of different quarries. It depends on the rock type, but we know that clay has got high levels of RCS. It can get deep into the lungs, and it can cause silicosis, which is a lung disease that is linked to lung cancer. So we're talking, potential cancerous effects. The workplace exposure limit for RCS dust. So this shows you how dangerous it is because you only have a little tiny bit over a time-weighted 8-hour period. That, you can see the penny there, that is the amount from a teaspoon of 0.1 milligrams of dust. And that is, when that's recorded, that's over an 8-hour time-weighted average. So you can see there's not a lot of dust that has to be in your breathing zone in an 8-hour period for that to get you over the workplace exposure limit. So it is, it's second only really to asbestos in terms of the way that it is being thought about now in the occupational health community. What can you, this is a guidance note I helped write for Quinjack for lorry drivers, but it's relevant to mobile plants and out in the quarries and the factories. Find out about the content of the dust, and I think pretty much as written in the clay industry, the level's high. Keep your cab windows closed. Use air conditioning when you're in the cabs. Vacuuming rather than dry brushing, because you can have a wonderful controlled area and then you go and do some dry brushing and you're basically just ahead of yourself, creating an exposure zone. Also, clearly, as we saw out there and we'll see again later, a lot of mud gets into the cabs. It also comes in on your clothing, dries out, and then that becomes a source of dust. Things like doors and window seals, making sure the heating, the aircon's working, air filters are regularly cleaned and changed. Non-porous seat covers. I know people moan about them and say it makes the bottom sweaty. I think I'd rather have a sweaty bottom than lots of dust in my lungs. That is so that, I used to do a slap test when I was an inspector. We'd go along with a dust mask on and you'd slap a porous seat cover and you'd see a handprint of clarity on the seat, and then you would see clouds of dust coming up off the cab seat. Don't shake out your dusty clothing prior to washing it. Try not to take dusty clothing into your car or into your home. And then we start talking about PPE. So we can't eliminate it. We can't substitute it for anything else because it's naturally occurring in our work environment. The controls very much should be those engineering controls, where in processing plants you'll have things like extraction, you'll have sort of buyback type hoovers where you can clear up spillages, all that sort of thing. Like some water suppression potentially. But the main one, I mean, I suppose I feel lucky in Chepstow is that we've got cabs that we put people in, so they're in little bubbles of control, and as long as they keep that bubble, you know, up together, they shouldn't be having huge exposures. Okay, so the question for all of us is, and particularly for the young ones in the room, is which later life lungs would you prefer? Now these ones near David, the lungs come black and, you know, clear on the X-ray. They are top quality, very, very, very healthy lungs. So, you know, depending on what you've got in mind for your retirement, you can potentially do some quite thorough gardening with lungs like that. But unfortunately, this is the outcome of silicosis, where you can see that this lung tissue has died as a result of those white blood cells trying to eat away at that inert silica in your lungs, and then your retirement is more likely to look like that. But as we've learned today, if there is huge exposures, then there is a possibility of acute silicosis, which is much more swifter than ever getting to a position of even having some grey hair. Okay. So this is to finish off my bit of the morning. So how much dust is too much?
1 grain. I was told 1 grain by an insurance claim against us.
1 grain?
1 grain of between 1 micron and 10 microns. It can trigger off the immune response.
Okay.
I mean, it sounded pretty awful. I think they withdrew it later on. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that is the workplace exposure limit. So I suppose that's what we have to look at. But really because if you can see it, then it's too much. So how can you see it when you're out and about?
In I work in a light quite a lot. It's always, there's usually some dust on the side. Is that like a good indication that there's dust in the air?
Yeah. There's dust in the air. If you get a shaft of sunlight sometimes into a building, you can see it there. When HCTa were doing big investigations into dust control, they would use very, very high-powered dust lamps, and that would frighten the life out of you, because you'd say, oh, I can't see any dust, I'm all right, I don't need to wear a mask, and then the next thing they turn this light on and you think, goodness me, that is phenomenal. The other thing, it's not very pleasant, but when you come home from work at night, if you blow your nose, you can see whether or not you've got some larger particles of dust in your nose and your airways, you know, a bit of coughing, different coloured things when you cough that look like dust and rock. That's a way of knowing whether or not you're exposed. Can your body break RCS down? No. And what can you do to protect yourself? A mask.
So suppression on the quarry.
So again, going back to a little bit of preaching about the hierarchy of controls. Main one, engineering control, because dust masks, and you're a perfect example of somebody that wouldn't be ideal to wear a face fit dust mask. Why is that? Because it's about the seal, isn't it? About so face fit, clean shaven. If you're not clean shaven, then you really need to, and you are exposed and need to wear some RPE. Then it would be a powered respirator that doesn't require so much of a seal. Also, you need to think about, if you're asking someone to go in and clean something up where they've got to do a lot of vigorous work, asking them to wear a face fit means that they will sweat, which will break the seal, and also potentially, are they going to get enough, they're going to get very tired very quickly trying to draw the needed oxygen through that mask. So there's a whole other world to go into about thinking about RPE, but protect yourself, is more towards the engineering controls. Okay. Right. That's me for this morning.
Thank you for that, Kath. And we have got a little bit more to go on after Kath's speech, but I'd like to call on our HCTa National Chair, which is Andrew Craddock, to give over thanks to Kath.
Nearly done my job for me, but yeah, thank you for this morning's presentation and practical session. So some interesting topics for the team, those old and new, those with many, many years of service and those with only a couple of years of service. So I think good to do the practical bits and the assessments as well, Kath, so much appreciated, and hopefully everybody's found it informative, stuff to take back and think about in your own locations. If I just look around the Ibstock team, you know, you've got your Quarries at Dorking and Catchybrook and obviously Nutton here as well, so plenty for us to take back. So thank you very much for the time and for being, you know, interesting, informative and professional as well. So thank you. Cheers.
Well, thanks, Kath, for that. There's a couple more things to announce. Our next meeting is a visit to Hollybank. That's it on the 29th of April. We've got a tour of quarry there. We concentrate straight on the geology. Andrew Cobb can explain a bit more about that maybe a bit later. And after that, we've got arranged by Jonathan over there a visit to middle plant training, followed by a visit to Caterpillar at Cannock. And we'll be able to look around their workshop and look at their machines. That'll be in September, so we'll have a bit of summer's break. So April's the last one of this season, and we'll start back in September. So now I'd like to pass over to Andrew Cobb, give a small spiel on the course available from the HCTa Initiative Quarry. Andrew.
Could you put back up on the screen, please?
We can't, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem.
I think I'll leave a few multiple copies of this.
There's quite a few spread about the table.
There are some tables there, but those of you who are HCTa stroke IQ members will either have just received your copy of Quarry Management magazine or about to. There is a 4-page article on HCTa training. So I've lifted table 2 from that. HCTa exists for 2 main purposes. One's networking, and although we haven't got many different companies represented today, most of you are Ibstock, you represent a lot of different sites. So I've heard Catchybrook, I've heard Nostell, obviously there's the local guys from here. It's a good opportunity to swap ideas and experiences. But the main thing that we do is education and training. Again, I noticed that quite a few of you are already apprentices. Great stuff. These courses that we've put on are prepared by people with years of experience in the industry. And everything that we've prepared has been peer reviewed by other people with experience as well. So I was involved very much in the Derby University courses. I prepared material, but everything that was in there was reviewed by at least 2 or preferably 3 people to make sure that what I put down is as near as possible accurate. And I'm really delighted to say that Daisy from Ibstock has just reviewed the whole set of Derby University courses to find all the mistakes that I've been making, even though everything's been peer reviewed. So you've got a wealth of experience that's gone into preparing those courses. Make use of them. The important thing for me, some of them are specific. You've got clay quarry managers courses. If you're involved in managing a quarry or working in a quarry in any way, that's really important and it's specific for you. But the other courses, the level 2 and 3, the Derby University courses, really are intended to be quarry to lorry. So you start with learning about the raw materials that you're digging and how you dig them, and you end up going through the entire process, whether you're making bricks, tiles, pipes or whatever, to loading it up on the lorry, quality assured and done. Why is that important? Well, your part of the process means that somebody else is either receiving material from your quarry or your factory is receiving clay from 1 or more different quarries. If you've got some knowledge about all aspects of the process, anything that goes wrong in your part of the process or somebody else's part of the process, you've got a better chance of understanding what's going on. Because David, what's the problem every time anything goes wrong in the brickworks?
You can always blame clay.
Yeah, that's how I got into this industry.
90% of the time it ain't the glue.
Thank you. But that's how I came to enter this industry back in 1980, because we got the quarry manager who was saying this problem is nothing to do with the clay, and we got the factory manager who was saying, oh yes it is. And that was at this site, where there was a roof tile factory where all the buildings are as you came in. Had a problem with dryer cracking, and the works manager was blaming the clay. And my CV happened to land on the desks of the right people at the right time, and it was, oh, a geologist. He'll be able to sort this one out. And the result of that was, okay, first learn all the tests that we do here, because they didn't teach you that at university and in geology degree. That was 2 or 3 months, and then the quarry manager brought me down here when it was a tiny little quarry, just supplying the one little tile works, and my task was to sample every different seam of clay, and you'll see how many seams there are when you go down there this afternoon, top to bottom and left to right across the face, and do every test that you've just learned on every sample. So 6 months later, I've done a lot of testing work, I've written a report, it's gone to the board of directors, and the spotlight has suddenly swung from the quarry to the works, because my conclusions were that this was a really good clay. What had actually been happening was, as I said, the problem was dryer cracking. It was a time of high demand, so what were they doing? They were pushing the tiles through the dryer as fast as they possibly could. The setting was a solid setting of bungs. Imagine a pile of tiles stacked on top of each other that high, roughly a cubic metre of solid clay. The outside tiles were lovely and dry, but the inside ones still wet. They were then putting those tiles into the kiln, temperature ramped up quickly, and you've got thermal shock. And all those tiles in the middle were cracking. So that's why, even though you're involved in a quarry, it's important to understand what your material is, because it has consequences further down the line. I've noticed some of your apprentices already. Keep going. Don't give up. You can never know too much. It really is important. And I would say, help the review process. Get involved with HCTa and the work that we do, because things are going to change. There'll be more knowledge that comes along. There'll be different technology that comes along. So these courses that we work hard to prepare, things are going to change, and it needs people like you guys at the beginning of your careers to get involved with changing things for the next generation after you. So I really just want to flag up, if you're involved, great, but keep going. There's always something new you can learn. And as I've said, read the article in Quarry Management. That will give you more details. Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just add a couple of, well, yeah, we'll be following that up. One of the things we'll do is be reviewing the courses. One of the things I'll pick up, we've done a review of the content recently, but just look at the delivery methods, see if there are any gaps that need filling as well.
Yes.
Use the 3 apprentices that are here. Now we're looking at doing material science degrees at the moment at Sheffield, all of you. So, but actually the clay content that is reasonably limited. So that's why these courses are important, because these courses are about taking your underpinning scientific kind of knowledge, but starting to actually apply it and teach you about the ceramic side. So this will be important learning to bolt onto. You know, you think you've got a degree, but actually now it's about mapping that over to the ceramic industry and filling in specific gaps. I think everybody here is actually a factory kind of technical person with kind of quarry input. So
Yeah.
I think that I'm with Andy on that. It's quarry to lorry. You got to understand the whole process so you can understand the interactions around it. So that's certainly something I know Ibstock are looking at, but we'll be trying to promote across the industry as well. So,
Yeah. The courses are prepared by the industry for the industry,
Absolutely.
not by academics.
Yeah, we all did the level 2 course.
Good, great.
So what would be the next progression? from
3.
that?
Yeah, I mean, to be
Level
fair,
three.
On to level 3.
possibly so, but I've got to say, I think level 2 is a bit too low for you. I mean, if you're doing a degree course,
Yeah.
you shouldn't really have gone on the level 2, would be my challenge to whoever put you on that. We need to, I would have maybe started you on the 3 or even start.
I think
put
3
one-
is GCSE level, so...
Yeah, exactly. I'd possibly go to the diploma, but if you're doing your degree, maybe that's too much. You've got to look at how your load of learning is as well. We don't want to overload you with lots of training all at once. You've got to get your degree done, but I think we could have certainly supplemented it with a bit more than a level 2 person.
Yeah, level 2 is intended as an induction suitable for anybody coming into the industry, whether you're working in the sales office or on the shop floor.
Yeah, because we did it like start of year 3 or end of year 2. So maybe
Yeah.
at the start of the apprenticeship it could have been a bit
Might have been a
valuable,
bit of a
I guess.
taster. Indeed.
Yeah.
One of the things that Tom will
I'm
be
not
picking
sure
up.
the level 3 was available then, was it?
No.
That's probably why you didn't
Yeah,
do it.
maybe. I thought
Yeah.
it had been around a bit longer than that.
There-
but maybe.
yeah,
Okay.
we
No, there
had
was
a
a
gap
period-
while
there was
we
a
were
period.
reviewing the course
Okay,
materials.
fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
So
But
it's back online again in September.
we'll certainly be looking at the kind of what fits best for people. I know Tom's
Yeah.
looking at that within Ibstock, and I'm sure there's probably others with other organisations looking at what's the best course for you and your trajectory and your kind of educational level. So we don't start you off too basic. We can get you moving on reasonably fast.
Yeah, if you're already doing an apprenticeship, I would be looking at level 3 and I would be looking at the diploma in clay studies. Basically the diploma is the foundation degree stripped out with the clay technology specific modules. So you don't do the engineering, you don't do the other sides of the foundation degree like concrete, asphalt, quarrying. You just do the clay technology module.
I'd always think you guys could be going straight onto the diploma for me. So 1 year course focused on with mentoring and support. You know, I think you should be at that kind of level when you finish your degrees to be able to go straight onto that.
And mentoring and support is another area you could get involved with. We're always sure to people to mentor new others coming in. If you've done one of these courses, you've got a few years in experience in the industry, please consider being a mentor to somebody else who's just starting out.
Yeah, I'd like to thank both Andrews for their input. It's much appreciated. And Andrew will not be, both Andrews will not be surprised that the quarry apprentice here was filling the deep end. And 2 years ago, just on the wall over there, that's some of Liam's work. He's sampling the faces with a surveyor, geoposition samples, and we did a sample from each scene of the quarry, which was available at that time. And he's going to repeat the exercise this year because we're going to different horizons available, and we'll have moved on 100 metres or so through the faces. So it's a continual process of evaluation. And if any apprentices want to come in the summer month and assist Liam with that, you're very welcome, because there's quite a lot of in-depth sort of testing work to carry out, and it can be challenging taking the samples sometimes.
Am I right in thinking that Mick will be coming down at some point as well?
More than likely he will assist, yes.
You just put the offer out at the time, obviously. So make sure you people in advance, so try and get some arrangements made. Because we've got to grab these learning opportunities that don't come across all the time. We've got to, what are the dangers of anybody in the ops side is making factory managers release people, you know, especially apprentices for training opportunities that can be a bit short-sighted. I think sometimes people have to take that decision out of their hands would be a polite way of telling them to let them go.
Okay.
Short-term pain, long-term gain.
Well, I think the exercise will probably take 2 or 3 weeks. It's obviously the sampling, the preparation of the sample, the test of the sample, and we are geared up quite well aside to do ceramic property testing and even common sulfur analysis. So again, thank you to both of you. Now it's lunchtime. It'll be a fast lunch because at 1 o'clock we can gather back in here, please, and go to lunch.
Oh, well, I'll grab a bit of lunch. I've got to get some lunch anyway, so I might as well do it here. Where is
but like with anything, drivers like, oh, it's different, this is a bit of a change.
We found at the pace, at the sand pace, that nothing would compare with the 980.
Yeah.
Re-handling, it's got to be lower.
Yeah.
But this is a different thing you're lifting and everything else together, so.
Yeah, they seem alright.
And the biggest thing is the guys don't have it. You just never rule with it.
But the problem with it is, I mean, the cost saving was massive. I mean, I think about 2 shovels, dumper and 2 excavators. By moving the cat away from step to £70,000 a year plus saving. So as soon as they don't the direct hear about it, they're not interested whether you like driving or not.
Well, you've got to have it, haven't you? That's a fair thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, do you keep them 5 years and change them again?
Yeah, usually, I mean, with checks out, used to 3. With cats, more like 5, yeah.
What, doing 6 hours a week on the farm?
Something like that, yeah. It depends, I mean, factories have shut down. Or we get breakdowns. As soon as the factories have lifted the breakdown, that will be back up and running today, obviously get popped up.
Yeah. Isn't Park House shutting down again? Because they take a little bit of logging sand from me.
Yeah. I think there was mention of the summer shutdown, I'm not quite sure. Depends on production.
Last time I went there, probably last... It was this thing.
Yeah.
Last September it was.
Yeah.
You couldn't get in the office. It was absolutely terrible. And I think you were walking somewhere else.
It's a really good start there. Yeah, it definitely is, but it's still been challenging, you know, with any site I think the future is the start that you always have bricks, you know, customers will always have to have bricks, you know. But for high-rise buildings, it's just saying it's easier. Yeah.
So it would be like steel and concrete structure.
Yeah.
And then you put the facade over the top. And your facade is inflammable, that kind of facade.
Yeah. It's all been fast as strong as those factories up here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's one of the big issues with high rise buildings, isn't it?
Yeah.
When
Especially
someone
after ground down. Did you say you started off in the Warwick? No. How did you end up in the health and safety?
Well, I was probably manager for 8 years. That's just probably manager, doing tarmac, I was the training to do. And then, obviously, it's kind of the health and safety quite a bit. Your role.
Yeah, quite a bit. And we were recruited, actually, we recruited very high to go on with us, yeah.
So I just sort of fell into it really.
All right.
Quite enjoy it then. I enjoyed it for quite a lot of the time. But then towards the end, my colleague left. And I was kind of the only one left. And there wasn't any sort of resource or insight on how to thinking about that. So I thought, it's going to come to a point where what I think I could do professionally in terms of my response to an incident, for example, I'm going to have to turn around and say, I just can't do that. And then you've got a family, you've got, civilisation expenses in it, response from it to the event, the incident. And
Yeah, you just get there straight away.
You try and get them, not to emergency service, expected to follow along behind them. And something like an investigation at level and tolerable up to 4 or 5 years of life in terms of all the investigatory work and then taking it through the court. So we're kind of, you can do all the stuff, but it's not great doing it.
Yeah.
And I just felt that I'm getting a bit overwhelmed by how much you expect. Well, how much I thought I could do, what was expected of me, and the fact that I had zero support for resource. And the end, thought, I don't know. And then it just happened that it was a job in Texas France. And that's kind of like it. I wanted to work in body. I enjoyed it during my college holidays and we thought, there's no no better way of telling how they locked and doing the fire. You know, this day with the geology part of it. Because when I was at the before, we were lost the job and so I thought, you know what, I kind of enjoy the variety of health and safety. And people, and you have got people here who you can tell them stories about, you know, all the humans. And it's kind of, you've got to put into it. And you just put them. Yeah. The thing that always shocks me is the people, you don't really think about it, do you? No. Especially at my site, I mean, people just think, oh, just get over it a little bit. That means the case, you're just looking at the effects further down the line. It's nothing there, it's not coming out. You're not going to be able to get it out before it's happening. I suppose to me is just way good opportunities, isn't it? Yeah. But you think of it and taking all the easy days. It is strange. Still doing it. His name Andrew, about his career and how he sort of was like yourself, geologist, just come out with a degree and then ended up, you know, where he is now, understanding the whole trade process and all that sort of thing. If there's any interest, I'm interested in, you know, like STEM masters and that, and that is trying to encourage people, you know, before your job, you know, to look at what's available, because I think people don't really think so. Yeah, practice industry. Like hit lobster hammer, you know, what could possibly be interesting or motivate people filling out of that, but there's so many wide variety of jobs. When I was, I never knew, well, obviously I knew and experienced science interest, but I never saw myself doing it when I was there. There's so much opportunity. Like, how did you get into it then? Did you post A level looking for something? Yeah, so I actually applied for vet school when I was I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then the job someone dropped out of my role that I'm in now. And I saw it on Indeed and applied within 2 months. Then we got the job as the degree apprentice. And then I've been like, I had no idea about it beforehand really. I just sort of got the opportunity to try it and see where it led me, because I didn't really want to go to uni. Well, it's not a job, it's like we went because they were all fully funded, the tuition fees. Not just somewhere you went because you want to know what to do. Yeah, but now, with all the expense and everything else, it is a big commitment. Yeah, my job was just, doing a HCTa levels and agriculture machines. The only way
It's been a great asset having Quarries out there. I suppose I'll step out as well. I'm going to give a spiel. Everyone else stay within the full ring.
Up here, David.
Okay, do you want me to give a bit of a spiel here? Or do you want to explain about the faults and stuff?
Do you want to give us a broad overview of excavations, tips and lagoons, just in case people aren't aware of the terminology for each bit?
Yes, we can do. Okay, so the most dangerous part of the quarry tends to be around the lagoons. Not necessarily the water, it's the slurry that's generated. So our lagoon is split into 3 parts. The first lagoon is there, but it's all full of slurry. It's about 15 metres deep slurry. If a dog walked across it, it'd be okay. A small child probably okay. Someone adult size is likely to sink in and die. So it is quite significant. We need to use that in our stockpiles to try and get rid of it to make it safe. There was a roadway across, it acted as a dam, which kept the slurry back in the middle lagoon where some finer material drops out. and then we've got another dam going across which has got a sandstone sequence in it. We're basically filtering the water through the sandstone sequence into the end lagoon. So it explains why you've got really dirty, thick, horrible slurry, a little bit cleaner, and then almost like drinking water. Now when it rains, the end lagoon, which looks like you can swim in it, will go chocolate coloured. So if that happens, we've got the facilities to pump out to discharge. We've got a silt buster piece of kit which takes out the solids and allows all the water to go through. It uses a set of chemicals, a coagulant, which is aluminium sulfate. That helps the material to clump together into little grain-sized forms. Then we add an anionic polymer to it, and those grain-sized lumps of clay will produce little flakes which settle out in a laminar clarifier, and it goes to discharge. So in virtually all weathers we can actually pump the water out, but it is challenging at times. Around the lagoons you can see we've got lots of lifebuoys which, as Kath said earlier, aren't very good because they're there for show. It sort of complies with regulation. If you try and throw them, most people don't get them on target.
You'd have a job to throw some of them from there as well, wouldn't you? Really?
Well, in past years the water levels have been within about 2 metres of where those lifebuoys are. So that's why they're there. Now you also see areas where we access quite often owned by the generators. There's lifebuoys, there's 2 or 3 on this side. On the other side there's 2 or 3 of them as well. We've got both adult and child size ones, because obviously a child goes through an adult one quite easily. And all the Ibstock plant have throw stick bags in them. So if anyone comes down in a shovel or a dozer or whatever and see someone in trouble, they don't go for the life ring, they use the throw sticks. Okay, so that's the lagoon area sort of boxed off. The actual faces that we have, we use a bench system where we dig from the face anything from 2 to 3 metres height, then we leave 10 metres as a roadway, and we haul to the stockpile using a dumper, and then each layer is compacted into the stockpile, because the stockpiles are basically like a layer cake. We put layer 1 down, which would be 500ml, then 2, which would be another 500ml, until we've got 16 layers of clay. Every layer rolled, compacted, to increase stability and reduce the permeability of the water. And once we've got dry weather and dry conditions, we put about 100ml of this slurry in the stockpile between the layers, because it's really good clay for making bricks. It's just it's not in a very good form to make bricks out of. In where I'm standing now, I'm on a fault zone, and over to the right hand side of that fairly across there, you can see there's a colour change. So you've got like maybe a bright red streak on the right hand side next to a grey sandstone type material on the left hand side. So you can see that line going through. So when we're building the stockpiles, we treat the material as the right hand side of the fault, which is getting less, the left hand side of the fault, and the throw is about 12 metres. So the left hand side of the fault seems 12 metres higher than the right hand side.
And is it the fault that's created that
the fault
failure
itself
there?
hasn't created the failure itself, but with it being a soft rock, the fault zone is not just like in a hard rock, it's maybe a few tens of centimetres across. In soft rock, it'd be hundreds of metres across. So that material will be a lot less strong because of the fault, and that will have added to the failure. But more than likely, it'll be water collects on the top, percolates down through the clay, and during winter that expands and pops it off, and then it's a simple case of gravity taking it down. And even without the freezing action, with it being clay, as the water percolates through, it creates slippage planes. So as well, you've got the topple failure, you can have it slipping down, which is happening over there. But that slipping action, making circular failures, is happening in the face at the top over there. My sight isn't good enough to see all the detail.
I put some photographs on here to look at the failures,
yes,
so that people can see the features of the failures in greater detail, if you like.
Yeah.
So going back to just the excavation there, we've got a fault plane, as David says. It's more likely than not that the weaknesses in that area and the opportunity for water, which is one of the biggest enemies of any excavation or any cut or filled slope, is able to get into there much more easily because of that throw and the positioning of the fault. Where we've got the circular failures, you can see like a C-shaped sort of crescent failure. You can see it clearly on the photograph anyway that I provided you with. They're up in that area just directly opposite us. Actually, you can see a couple of scars. Vegetation is a really good tell of if conditions underneath are changing. You can see just directly opposite me here now, you can see like a C-shaped scar at the back and then another just a linear scar beneath it. It is the structural strength of the material is moving in a circular fashion, and a lot of that is to do with water content. So the elements are slope angle, material strength and water content, and those all three will come together and give you these failure mechanisms that David's introduced us to. We have got a picture as well of the toppling failure. Now the circular failures tend to happen in soils and mudstones, whereas the planar failures tend to happen in your rocks, where the rock stands up because it's got a huge amount of strength, but then when either material is removed from beneath it or whether it's eroded to a certain point, then it will produce that toppling. So in terms of managing the quarry excavation, the idea is that you know what failure mechanisms you've got and you design your drainage or your excavation slopes to reduce the chances of having these failures. That's a small failure up there, but you can have in some sites multi-bench circular failures that then could close off your haul road and access to one side of your quarry. It can actually, if not managed correctly, can actually stop the show. And been to a number of quarries where that's happened. So these failures, they're known in this kind of material, and it's how you manage them that matters.
Yeah, anybody who wants to come on the full tour, you're all welcome to come on the full tour. We're going up to the far end where we've got some mine shaft activity, or we'll come back along that haul road there, so you'll actually pass those failures and get lots of small rock traps and drainage ditches in situ to manage the water. So it's up to you at this point. You can ask any questions of Kath and myself from here, and anybody who wants to go on the full tour, you can come with ourselves, or Thomas will take anybody who wants to go back or has got a pressing meeting to attend to.
I need to go back.
Yeah, I do.
Could I have a copy of the presentation? Is that possible to share with my people at work? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I'll just check through, but yeah, I think so. I think it was for general release. I'll check with it. Just at one point then, before everyone departs, crucial control when we've got wheeled vehicles in a quarry environment is edge protection.
Yeah.
And this is from the HSC guidance. They shouldn't be just boulders, they shouldn't be just ramps, they should have a face to them so that they absorb the impact of a vehicle that might run away. And that needs to be at least 1.5 metres in the UK, or if you've got a much bigger wheel, a much bigger machine, then it needs to be half the wheel height. It's quite straightforward, but the challenge is with the British weather and the substrate we're trying to build them from, is keeping them at that level, because they want to erode away because of the way that their slope angle and everything wants to erode away. All right, that was all I wanted to say on edge protection.
And on that note, in the winter time, any roads that we're not using will bund off, and those roads with a glorified rock trap, we just allow them to fail and clean them up and redress them afterwards, because that's the only thing you can do. It's not sensible to keep on managing the haul roads that you're not using.
David,
yes?
When you mix the slurry with the stock,
yes,
in good weather, how do you get at the slurry? Do you use a drag line?
No, we just basically dig in with excavators. So we've got lots, every time we go around the quarry, we'll take lots of photographs and lots of plans. We know where the firm areas, like there's a roadway across there we can travel across. Under that slurry around the bank side, there's a roadway going behind where the slurry is. So initially, we'd come in at that end where that roadway is, dig the slurry off the road, then reach either side of the road for the slurry. Now what you tend to find with the slurry, it is mobile. So if you come back the next day, what you've created a void, that void will be full again, then you dig it out again. At some point that stops happening, and when that happens, we'll come in from that side, dig through that bit of abundance, and then attack it, dig at it, and have the dumpers take it away, and the slurry will keep on flowing towards us while we're doing that, and then as it gets lower and lower and lower, then we've got to chase it around the lagoon. We normally just do by driving the plant in, but not, you keep the tracks on solid ground all the time, and you keep the dumpers behind the tracked vehicle, so there's no risk of the dumpers slipping or having an issue.
And do you do it from memory where the good road is, or do you have to re-drill it?
Every 3 or 4 months we have the quarry surveyed, the whole quarry surveyed, so we know exactly where the landforms are. We can't rely on memory. So
you put pegs in, so where the road finishes? Or?
No, we do precisely survey drawings. And if it was a small lagoon, we'd have a long reach excavator. But a long reach excavator in that lagoon there, you started off 5 years later, it's probably got through to the side. Unfortunately, you've got more slurry coming in than you can actually dig away. So you with a long reach, it's not practical.
So drag lines, they're out of the window.
Well, a drag line would work, it's just we haven't got that to invest in.
It wouldn't be worth it, would it, for the odd job?
No. Okay, should we collect at the bottom of the stairs? Anybody who wants to come on the long tour, if you group with myself, and anybody wants to go back, you group with Thomas.
Youth on our side now, David.
Sorry?
Youth on our side now.
Oh, good.
David's only a young 60.
If we need rescuing, we could get them to do it.
And you would cover egg protections if egg protection suitable sufficient.
Oh, I would have thought so. If I can't see over it, David, it's usually high enough. Now, on this tour, the only chance you'll get hit by a bit of mobile plant, We're trying to avoid that then, David.
Will stop all production being the road. I like to be dramatic.
He's got his own YouTube. Don't jinx it though.
If I put any washing on my washing line at home, that usually means it rains, so I haven't got anywhere near it. Staying away from it for the time being.
Liam, when do you think you'll be doing those sample sort of things?
I mean, it depends on the weather, I think, but fairly soon, I imagine.
I don't know.
When I hear anything concrete, I'll email you if you want.
Sorry?
When I hear anything concrete back, I'll email you if you want.
Yeah, that would be good because I've not had the chance to do something like that, and I have to do certain what they call it, modules
Right.
in the quarry anyway, so it might be a good time to sort of do both. But
I think last year Jack Taylor Holiday came down to do a similar thing.
so sorry if it repeats anything.
That's alright.
You were meant to come today, wasn't it? But I think you got stuck to Aldridge.
Yeah. There's a few people who pulled up last minute, to be fair.
Yeah, Isabel was meant to come as well. I don't know, has she ever been here before?
Um,
Isabel Whittington.
I'm not sure.
She's based down south at Cheney.
I've met her before.
Yeah.
There was an event in 2024 at Dale Creek. She was there with, can't remember her boss's name.
James.
I'm awful at names.
Stuart, that's his name. I think, or maybe it's a technical manager, I don't know.
No, I think it is Stuart something.
Stuart Knight, maybe he's the factory manager
Yep.
there.
I think that's it. Stuart Knight. Stuart Knight, quite a big fella with a beard. Yeah.
We went out for tea with him when we went down to Bristol, and he ordered so much food because apparently that's just what he does. But no, he's a very nice man.
I mean, there doesn't seem to be anyone that's like putrid or evil in.
No, I haven't met anyone.
Never stopped yet.
Like that.
Everyone seems to be quite happy and.
Yeah. It's a shame Andrew Federick's retiring because he's a very knowledgeable man about playing and stuff.
I mean, in fairness, he's sort of at the tail end of his career anyway. I think he's just sort of on the wind down.
How long's your apprenticeship for? Is it 4 years?
The course with Derby finishes this year, but the apprenticeship with like Ibstock as a whole is longer. It's 4 years.
Oh right. What are they going to have you do then?
I don't know.
Very odd.
Ask Karen Harris.
That's 5 extraction, and then we'll have an area manager and a supervisor. That's another 2. So and then 3 comes 3 or 3, yes. So number 8 or so.
Is it an Ibstock engineer?
No, Chepstows.
Yeah, specific mobile planning.
Yeah.
And then this summer, the Chepstow team can double up. So in April we'll have 2 teams off, and we'll have 1 team building for the Parkhouse main stockpile when we started. Parkhouse wants a very high carbon stockpile as well, so we'll have a team that will build that small stockpile to take about 2 weeks, and then we'll move that team onto overburden, and we've got probably 2 or 3 months worth of overburden to move. So quite a lot of material.
Which area? This working area?
Across the top of the battery traces, so we'll go up, and it's basically where the mine shafts are. Before we can work in the mine shafts, we have to have a licence to do it, and that's been applied for. Any time now we should get that, and we'll certainly have it before April.
What's the mine shaft?
Sorry?
What's the mine shaft?
Well, this area is got some coal mining. Right. So a mine shaft is when they dig vertically in the ground, they found a seam, and then they would burrow and take the seam out, and then they'd bring up the material to the top of the mine shaft. So an example of that in this quarry. I think Jonathan could explain more about mine shafts than me.
Probably, although they predate me just about.
Yes.
Because when we bought our place in South Staffs, it was all vertical mine shaft. And then when we bought the coal mine, going to coal mine, we turned it into drift mining, where you just follow the seam. Now, because the seams at Brown Hills come right up to the surface, we can just literally follow the seam down. We had a team of pit ponies in those days, pulling the trucks out.
Oh, good.
That's interesting.
Well, I've had a better take. Does Catherine say anything about the safety of benches and digging and what's the technical required for tracking and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, you've got a quarry face, you've got a bench quarry faces for stability reasons, so that you're not got just one consistent quarry face without any steps or benches on it. So it's for stability for the overall face, but it's also so that obviously you can get the trucks somewhere near to the various clay levels that you want to look at. Invariably, we tend to load from above because you've got much better visibility, and the way that we work it is you've got your face and then you've got your bench. So we also create a rock trap which is between the face and the bench. So if anything was to spool down from the quarry face, then it goes into a trap rather than engulfing the machine, because that was a possibility, particularly in clay material, which is it's also a possibility in rock. So yeah, we load from above.
having maximum of 180 degrees slew on an excavator. We wouldn't want to be slewing all the way around because that's altering a bit of efficiency. And also this way, where the operator is, you can clearly see what's going on with the face, and you can clearly see what's going on with the loading operation. The working quantities, if you like, and drive sprockets to the rear, should everything happen, and he just immediately gets himself out of that. So that is the way that we prefer to work. Okay, let's slow to the dump truck, he lets you know he's loaded it, beeps him, and off he goes. And while he's waiting for the next one, which, as we timed it within an inch of his life, here ready, got a bit of scraping up to do, got a bucket full, and then our next taxi and play is ready to take it.
Okay, any questions for anybody?
Material he's taking now, is this the extraction method we see, the bucket, scooping?
Yeah, he's into the clay. Because it's soft material, then the excavator's got enough breakout force to break the clay. Even in the rockier areas of the quarry, he can break that, he's got the force to break that out. There's no blasting that goes on in the clay quarry. So if you go into a rock quarry, then the clay explodes.
The excavator is a 50-ton machine that configures every material on site, but with some of the sandstones it gets a bit challenging. So the sandstone, some of them we break them first, so we have a chisel on the end of an excavator and bash down sort of thing and break it off. And then once it's broken off,
a bit like a jackhammer you see on the road, but on a big scale.
Yeah, so that's a centimetre to a private crusher, or if it's small enough to get that to a stockpile. Now, we could actually use a 35-ton machine at the top, and that will dig quite efficiently to get about halfway down between the top where the grey is down there. But as soon as you're halfway, it becomes so hard that the efficiency goes down, so you really need a 50-ton machine for the whole site.
The 50-ton mean the pressure on the bucket?
It's the weight of the machine, so it's how much force it goes into. Yeah. And when we get the overburden team in, that'll be like a 35, 36-ton machine, and that can go to the overburden and all the soft steel clay, but not the hard one. It's the same mineral we're digging out. At the top, it's very soft, and as we get deeper down, it gets more compacted over charge at time, and it's a lot harder. Okay, so we carry on a bit further.
You can see the sort of sandstone rock, and you can see how that fails in a different way from the way that we see the circular scars from the top over there. You can see it fails in a sort of more top-in manner straight ahead of us here, where we've got that scar around the fault zone. You can see all the different colours as where the material's just fallen, rolling down the slope.
Obviously, you're still into mining. How do you... Initially, we just stood away from that.
Depending on where the clay is, if you can't do that, it'll get worse for you. You can see that there. You get to the bottom section, because the height from the bench, the back bench down to the bench below, is too high to load from one bench and drop it onto a dumper below. So we'll have to work at the same level as the dumper and load from the back. So that's like operating as a Circassian 360 operation. So we'll have to do that to get another road floor across there, and then you take the whole lot back the same way as it's digging at the moment.
They'll have timed it to exactly how many dumpers they want. Too many, they start away.
Well, those that mine buildings in mine could be half the way.
No, we're shallow.
We haven't actually advertised the fact that I did stuff.
What we then have to Yeah. Yeah, there's one.
And in the mine capital license, the big criteria in there, and then we do have to make a license.
Yeah.
Survey.
When did you find it?
We found that 2 years ago. Oh wow. And then we tested off how it's friendly. So what was like that? Yes, we could go behind. there's 2 or 3 mine shafts and basically dug through and you didn't notice them.
Yeah.
The only way you know they should be there is on the topographical plan.
I did have to
describe the mine.
today, so he was bedded all.
Try all the trees.
Yeah. That's what we were doing. Pretty busy.
Do you drive any of the machines?
None of these bigger ones, no. I'm being trained later on in the year to do excavator work,
Okay.
both on the smaller, well, we have Takuchi now, but we're swapping it out soon with a cat. And then we have a tractor with a water bowser on the back and other attachments as well. I drive that, yeah. I use that for site inspection.
Do you do more quarry management work?
Yeah.
What degree do you do? Minerals management?
It's the same one that Isaac does at Leicester.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the course like?
I think it's very dependent on like who the lecturer is at the time.
Yeah. I feel like that's the same at Sheffield.
Yeah.
I think that's any uni.
There's,
Do you do?
there's one lecturer, John Austin, who's pretty good, but the rest of them are kind of miserable and horrible.
Yeah. There's Paul Bingham and ours, so I think it's pretty
Yeah,
good.
Paul Bingham's alright.
And then the rest of them.
Do you do Friday and Saturday?
Yeah.
Every week?
No, not every week.
Oh no, that would
Every-
be excessive, wouldn't it?
Stay overnight?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that far away because I go to Derby, but I mean, if Ibstock's going to pay for it, like.
Hotel alright?
Uh,
Do you pick it yourself?
I mean, you do get sort of run-of-the-mill.
Yeah.
I went up to Throckley at the sort of tail end of last year.
Yeah.
And then we were staying in like a golf resort or something. That was fancy.
What, in Throckley?
It was near Throckley, yeah.
Cool.
Where do you stay when you're at Sheffield?
Well, we went Radisson last year.
I love Radisson.
Hanging in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the best.
We feel underdressed for breakfast, wearing like joggers, and then everyone's wearing like a suit. Yeah, it's nice though. Yeah, it's good. Probably found out about it a bit too late now.
Yeah, I mean, I started
It doesn't really come up on Roommate.
No, it doesn't. You have
Yeah.
to like search and search for it.
It's like hiding it. I used to like Mercure, but then that's always for out of range now. Because you used to
it's
get,
really expensive.
you used to be able to use like.
Is it not out of policy?
Yeah, it is now.
Right.
You used to be able to use like the spa for free,
Yeah.
but then they changed it to
I
like
don't
£20.
mind what's it called? The one near it, the one bigger with N.
Novotel.
You do much
Yeah,
work
no,
or
yeah.
visits?
Yeah, Novotel's alright.
I was saying, like, I went up to Throckley tail end of last year.
Yeah.
And then we've got Parkhouse and Chess
You get the train?
factories, which are local to here. I go around fairly regularly.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the factory was called. It's like right down south, near the south coast, past London. I can't remember what the factory's called. But we went down there to pick up carbon sulfur analyzer.
You get paid for driving your own car?
Yeah, they give me.
Is it 40p a month?
I think it might be 48 to be fair.
It's on 45, it might depend on what price it is.
Really?
How old are you three?
I'm 20.
Is that diesel and petrol?
Sounds like 24.
I'm only 20. I haven't passed my test yet. No.
Have you got a test booked or?
Yeah, I've got a test booked next month. There's just the extra issue of trying to get round everywhere.
I'm 23 Jakes. 20 I think. 20 or 21.
21. How old are you?
I'm
20. 21 this year.
How old are you, Emma?
I'm 20. I definitely learned to drive, like, especially for the business, it helps so much. Get around and stuff.
Right.
It's not through lack of trying, I'm just shit at driving.
It's difficult. I crashed my car the other day.
Not too badly though. It
It's,
still works, doesn't it?
yeah, it
Take
still
it as a
works.
win.
So that's a no, it
Take
doesn't
as a
work.
win.
But it's going to cost me £750.
Mind yourself.
So adits tend to be horizontal, don't they?
Yes.
And shafts tend to be vertical.
And this area where we're standing on appears to be like a pumping station. So if you go around it, you can see bits of pipework coming out of different areas.
Yeah.
We'll go up slightly further, where we've got two sets of Harris fencing. One is around some potentially contaminated material, because as this is a very old building, it's likely to have things like asbestos built into it, and there is some sheet material that we can see, and we've had tested, it says an asbestos board, so that'll have to be dealt with to current legislation. A bit further on we've got another set of house fencing where there's a mine shaft, and we basically dug down to locate the top of the shaft, put a flag on it, covered it all up, and then put the fence around until we can get permission to extract properly.
So have you had the archaeological people down here with cameras?
No, we haven't, no. It'll all be in the licence from the Coal Authority, so we won't get the licence, we'll have to follow the
whatever they
procedure
say,
of that.
yeah. But they haven't even got records on it, probably predates all
Well, the reason why we found it is that we were searching carefully, going off old Coal Authority plans and OS maps, and some of the positions where a mine shaft was marked, we'd already dug through and there's no mine shaft there at all.
So the problem is they're from like the 1700s or something, like really early. Then obviously they're not going to record it with GPS or anything like that, are they? They're just going to go, well, it's somewhere there.
Yeah, yeah.
After the fact, maybe
Mind
10 years
before
after.
GPS,
Even.
we were still mining that sort of thing, and we used to have a surveyor that came down once a week, and he'd be plotting every move we made fairly accurately, you know, by cross dead reckoning. Yeah.
So I'm binge watching Australian version now.
Have you ever watched Quarries?
Yeah.
Yeah.